Hey team, Johnny Wells here. Welcome to the show where we host top producing agents generous enough to share their story and success. Today, I'm grateful to present our guest, Tim McMullen. Tim is located in San Francisco, where he's been selling properties since 2016. He's worked as a solo agent, as a director of content for a $150 million team, a sales executive for a $1.2 billion Four Seasons private residences development in downtown San Francisco, and most recently branched out to create his own firm, McMullen Properties. He's an entrepreneur by nature. I have him on record as he tried to have a job once. It lasted 5 months. And at the time of this video, Tim has 25 million in active listings, the vast majority of which came from the marketing systems he built over the years. We're going to hear Tim's story now and learn how he built his business around digital marketing. Tim, how's life treating you?
That might be one of the best intros I've ever received, man. Thank you so much.
We're rocking. We're rocking.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a Tuesday, turn up Tuesday.
You did your research. I appreciate it. Unreal. Life's treated me unreal, man. Yes, it's located in San Francisco. Selling real estate is my favorite thing to do. I'm currently up here in Tahoe. The snow hit pretty heavy the last couple of days, so I had to sneak out of town and steal some fresh power when I could.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good for the soul, huh?
Oh, dude, before this interview, I got 2 hours on the mountain for like first tracks. It was, this smile on my face comes from that. Like,
oh my gosh,
it was unreal.
Brilliant. I got to pencil that in for myself here this winter for sure.
Do it.
Cool. So, hey, to bring our listeners up to speed here, just in case they catch on to like a level of familiarity between you and I, we know each other well. I'm your executive coach. We go way back. But today we're going to focus on how you built your business and learn some pearls about digital marketing. How's that sound?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Awesome. Let's do it. So, hey, again, 25 million in active listings right now. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. But again, active listings sold is very different with the current state of the market. Obviously, it's December of 22. It's been about as difficult to sell real estate as it ever has been in at least my career. So 25 million actively listed is really cool on paper, but let's not kid ourselves. We actually need to sell them to make this thing real. Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. And you had a good year last year too, which as far as, starting McMullen Properties, how's that feel?
It's my favorite thing I've ever done, by far. And I've started a lot of companies. I've tried to start a lot of businesses. Starting McMullen Properties at the start of this year, simultaneously with starting Label Technologies, which we can get into. It's been my favorite thing that I have literally ever done. I left said $150 million team at the start of the year. And ultimately just wanted to do something with my favorite people. Like McMullen Properties is obviously me. I've included my family in different roles with the idea of one day stealing mom to get her to come out to the States and work for McMullen Properties. Dad too, Elise too.
Yeah.
But honestly, that moment happened back in January where it was like time to part ways and go do my own thing. I recruited one of my best mates to start a team underneath Label Technologies alongside McMullen Properties. And then recruited one of my other sort of best mates within the digital marketing space, who's just an absolute beast at what he does, to come and co-found this company with me. And it's been my favorite thing, dude. When it's your family, when it's the home team, and everything I do, it directly results in my best friend's family's success. Like there's no better feeling.
Yeah. Working with your people, what about that is important to you?
I mean, I'm the type, I think, that wakes up every single day and just chases. Like that's literally all I do. That's my DNA, is to wake up at 5 a.m. and just fucking go. Excuse my language. Until I go to bed. Like that's what I do all day, every day. It's kind of how I live my life. And when you're on a team, or like you're working for a company that other people don't exist that way, and obviously they can't. Like people have lives, they have families, they have things to do. I in a way have the luxury of being a single, early 30s. So when other people aren't going that hard, it deters me from wanting to push that hard for them. Because in my mind, like, I'm an athlete. I play sport. I came here to play sport at the highest level. That's why I'm in the States. And if other people aren't savages that are just chasing it, like, and it's hard to find that. It's hard to find that in the workforce. So when I flip the switch of like, I'm trying to be on these teams and like hoping that these people are gonna just want it as bad as I do. You flip that switch to now it's your people. Like, it's your best friends. It's your best friends' families. They've got a 1-year-old. There's all of my co-founders have kids. Tom, Jack, yep. Like, it's, if they can't pull this thing up the mountain, I can pull it up the mountain for them. And I'll do that all day, every day. So it's flipped my entire perspective on work, on teams, on all of that stuff. It kind of gave me the chance to start my own team, do my own thing, and bring who I wanted to bring with me. And it's fucking cool.
Beautiful. Yeah. That resonates with me. I'm a father. I got 3 kids, and my people are pretty important to me. That's kind of what gets me up and going too. So the majority of your business, I understand, is coming kind of from one area, or maybe we could just call it a skill set. What is that?
Digital marketing. It's what I absolutely was fascinated by when it sort of first became a thing, when social media really started to take hold. I think I'm lucky enough. I'm in the millennial generation where, as I'm entering the workforce, certain people are starting to make massive headway in the social media world. And like, in a past world where it was all built on referrals and word of mouth and how many postcards you could send out and like being the local neighborhood realtor, I was raised in the generation of no, you could get 2 million people to see your shit tonight, and 42 of them might hire you, and you might have 42 listings in 10 seconds. I was just utterly fascinated with the speed at which you could build a brand or a name or a business. And I've honestly been just an absolute digital marketing nerd since. So when Tom Tran and I founded Label, it was like we're just 2 digital marketing nerds that care about the same stuff, that have studied the same stuff. And I think people like the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world and those types, that when I stumble upon them, and this is the beauty of the power of some of these people that have the brands that they have on social media. It's like, when I stumbled upon them, fell in love with the idea of everything they're saying. I read every single book they ever wrote. Like, you go down the rabbit hole and you figure out how to repeat their success. And that sort of turned into doing that for myself as an agent over the years, like trying to build a brand around Tim selling real estate. And honestly, I'd say probably 80% of every sale I've ever done has come from social media over the course of the last 7 years. And whether that's a friend sending a friend some of my content, or whether it's just like people that follow me on Instagram or Facebook reach out saying, like, I like what you've been doing, I'd be interested in hiring you. But it was always really difficult to do it when it was somebody else's brand. Like, that's kind of what I got hired to the Four Seasons to do when it was time to launch that project. It was, how do we get this business in front of all the potential buyers that can afford I think the average price of a unit at this Four Seasons when we started was $8.5 million over the 146 residents. So like, there's only a handful of people in the world that can afford an $8.5 million condo. That in all reality is not a primary residence. It's like a 3rd or a 10th residence that these type of people own. So it was, okay, let's package that. Let's reverse engineer who these buyers are. And then let's put this product in front of these buyers in some sort of a digital sense. So they're just always seeing it. They're always consuming it. And then again, just kind of when the moment came to branch out on my own, it was, I have all these skill sets that I've been building over the years. Let's make a business where all of these things run automatically in the background. We can build a bunch of different sales funnels, a bunch of different marketing tools. So people are always seeing McMullen properties, like always. In Marin County in San Francisco, I think McMullen Properties has had 1.7 million impressions this year, which would make McMullen Properties probably the biggest brand in that area by who knows how big of a margin. But again, if you kind of resort that back to postcards, if somebody's trying to get 1.7 million postcards out, that's probably like a $700,000 spend. And I
Yeah.
want like maybe a hundredth of that. And that's resulted in McMullen Properties having 25 mil worth of listings, which has been really cool.
That's 80% of your business, more or less, coming kind of from this skill set. And, thinking about our listeners, what's especially remarkable, I'd say, is that reliably generating business from a comprehensive digital marketing and branding strategy. It's not something that's a typical skill set amongst agents, right? It's just not, it's not in the book, right?
Of course not. Of course not. And I think to touch on that, you shouldn't expect it to be like the typical real estate agent. Again, most of them are older. They're sort of 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. The big shots have been doing this for 30, 50 years. They grew up in a very different world, where word of mouth was everything, where postcards were everything, where like getting your listings in the middle section of the newspaper was probably the highlight, that your clients would be like, wow, you got me in the middle of the not.
It had an ROI. It had an ROI back in the day. It did.
It absolutely did. And I think my thesis on business in general is if you're reliant on referrals, you don't have a business. You have a bunch of people you're hoping will spread the word for you. But if you can have something where you reliably know that your brand is always being shown in different ways to different people, like that is a reliable client acquisition system.
Gotcha. Yeah. And again, like there's a turning of the page that's kind of happening with the real estate industry right now. And I hear from agents all the time that it's some combination of either they outwardly wish that they had this skill set and they're willing to pay people to do it, but they can't find people who can do it, or they want to learn, or they don't know where to start. Or maybe the other is just downplaying the utility of it, and from what I think is more of like a fear of a place of not knowing really where to start with it, right? It is like so foreign to some people that it just has to it has to not exist and not be a thing, or to the people who know it is a thing and want it to be a thing for themselves, they're expressing, a desire to learn, but not knowing where to start.
Definitely. And I don't think you can blame an individual for this, for that at all. I think the way to think about it is reverse engineer what people do all day, every day. Like, I'm sitting on this thing for 8 hours a day. And if I'm savvy at marketing, I know that I need to be on that thing in front of me as often as I can be to get me to do whatever you want me to do. And so you just reverse engineer behavior. Like if all your clients, if you're shooting, say you're trying to sell the senior home as a real estate agent, right? Like say that's your bread and butter, you sell 65 plus senior homes. They're watching daytime TV. They're reading magazines. Like your brand being in the place where your consumer is important. I'm in San Francisco, like every single person is on their phones all day, every day, if not soon in Google headsets, if not soon in so my marketing strategy literally has to adapt with where my consumer is, and then producing something that gets them to go, I like that guy. Like I'd hire him. Like that's it. And it doesn't matter what you're selling.
Yeah, the way I see it, to sell something, and I've been in sales for a long time and had some good luck doing it, I would just say that to sell something, you have to be in front of your clients.
That's
right.
It.
But this is a turning of the page, and like, how are you in front of your clients? There's like high quality interpersonal interactions, which are undoubtedly the best, but it constrains you to one at a time. And how do you make that happen? Where do you reach those people? Are they actually a prospect, or is it just another human being? And like, yeah, a human being will eventually be a prospect. That's great. But what about today? And like, as you mentioned, if people are on their phones all day long, you have a strategy for that's how you get in front of your prospects.
Absolutely. And to sort of touch on what you just said, that one-on-one conversation type thing, what the digital world has given us and the social world has given us is the ability to have this one-on-one conversation and then scale it so 10,000 people can watch it at the exact same time. And so as a digital marketer now and a real estate agent, if I'm noticing that there's routine conversations about interest rates rising, or routine conversations from my buyers asking about how do you get certain credits in this market where it's now more of a buyer's market than a seller's, I can turn that into a piece of content. and I could pump that out to the ecosystem. And maybe 75 people watch the entirety of it. And then 21 of them go, Tim kind of sounds like he knows what he's talking about. If I'm going to buy a house, that got to top of my list, like, right. And so that's the game I play. That's where McMullen Properties is seeing success, and that's where Label is currently building.
Epic. So I don't want to lose your story in all this. So let's quickly let's circle back, because so I know that where you're at today, I've been fortunate enough to be part of the journey, and I know that where you're at today, I know for you it's just a starting point of a new chapter. You know that you're at ground zero in your world, but you know where you're at today. You know, it wasn't an overnight journey building this skill set, was it?
No, absolutely not. This has been 8 years, I think. Yeah, graduated in 2013, kind of got into the professional world, I'd say in 2014. So this has been an 8-year climb. I've played in a bunch of different industries. I was in the fitness space. I got a kinesiology degree. So the only way they'd let me stay in the States was to have a 1-year work visa to do something in the field I graduated in. So I became a personal trainer at Equinox in Palo Alto in the Silicon Valley, which by dumb luck was probably the igniter of this entire thing, because I just got to hang around cool people all day, every day. Like Cook, there'd be Peter Thiel, there'd be like Vivek, pick a name, like all these huge Silicon Valley people were all in this space every day. And I'm interacting with them as a trainer. I kind of quickly raced to the top trainer at that gym. I was convinced by my clients many times to try a bunch of different businesses, and one that stuck was Corporate Fitness Project. I saw a way to scale sort of myself as a fitness professional. I went around to a bunch of startups in the Silicon Valley, and I was selling kind of like an a la carte menu to health and fitness. So if you're a startup with 6 people and you want a yoga class on a Wednesday, I'll source the yoga person, I'll plug it in, put it together. Or say like a 400-person company, you want a bunch of boot camps, a bunch of things, maybe a nutritionist to come into your kitchen because you're obviously cooking for employees. Like we'd source the talent, we'd kind of like put it in place. And that was my first sort of foray in building a business. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was 25 and I tanked it out and it sucked. And I started the next one, and you just kind of build as you go.
And unless we miss it, how did you get to the States, and where, like, people hear an accent? What is that? That's London?
It's 12 years Californian at this point, with a little stint in Oregon. Came here to play American football. I was a punter for Humboldt State, which is where we met. What's up, dude? And then transferred up to Oregon State. Had a fantastic time. All my teammates from the West Coast, as you know. All my best friends are on the West Coast. So like going back to Australia, it was just like, I kind of like it here. I could do this.
Yeah. And so what after the personal training and that and Corporate Fitness Project, that kind of first project and that first entrepreneurial venture?
First company, yeah. I just didn't like it, to be really transparent. I didn't like the role that I had now created for myself, which was bouncing around and selling to startups. So I was kind of like an outside sales role, and that just wasn't me. A personal training client at the time, sort of convinced me to get into real estate. I honestly had a lot of personal training clients that were sort of angels on my shoulders and telling me to try and take risks and do a bunch of things, because a lot of them had achieved massive success in the Silicon Valley. And one of them said, why not real estate? Like, if you're going to do individual sales, why not? Yeah. Like the commission checks are bigger, the lifestyle is more fun. You don't have to be anywhere at any given time. And
isn't that so sick for your frame to be around people like that? So many of them.
If I put it down to anything, like, that changed my life.
Yeah.
That changed course of where Tim McMullen was going. And to this day, like, most of my personal training clients are still my boys. They're my American mothers that look over, like, make sure I don't fuck up. And it's a good thing, man. But awesome. No, one of them introduced me to one of the top real estate agents in San Francisco. He was sort of in his 60s. He's one of the biggest names in the city. He sells all the $20 to $30 million Pac Heights mansions. Like, that's his bread and butter. And so I shadowed him for a couple of years. I thankfully got introduced. He welcomed me into his world. He invited me to a lot of things and kind of let me watch from afar. And I kind of learned how to do it. I saw what it looked like to have a really successful high-end real estate business. And I was like, okay, like I can do this. This is fun.
Yeah. Couple of years you shadowed them. So, I mean, it takes time to learn mastery over things and to develop yourself.
And I've had some, even in the real estate space, I've had some incredible mentors. Like I said, it's taken 7, 8 years from Joel being the top dog in SF. The next mentor that sort of took me under his wing when I joined the Kanoko team, or the Gueco real estate team at that point, like Kevin Gueco has taught me more about real estate than anyone. Like, and a lot of the ways that he runs and operates his business have really rubbed off on me, and we've helped each other in a million different ways, but that mentorship is invaluable. And then at the Four Seasons, it was that again. It was 3 of us got hired to sell a $1.2 billion building with an average unit price of 8.5 mil. And it took real estate from this, like talking to people, trying to get listings, taking buyers, doing showings. It like really packaged it into like, this is an elite level sales process where every single step of the sale is choreographed to make sure that the consumer gets the experience we want them to get. So like from the season, for example, it's like when they arrive in the valet, how does the valet person greet them? How do they get out of their car? How do they walk through the lobby? What does the lobby smell like when they walk through the lobby? How do we as the sales team greet them? How do we walk next to them to get to the sales, like the presentation suite? What drinks are being offered? Like that, everything was so choreographed, and it led to me sort of taking that back into the resale real estate world of, okay, what's the biggest issue that every agent has? And it's client acquisition. Like if you don't have a steady flow of clients coming in, you don't have a business, or you don't have a marketing system. So let's choreograph the entire process from when somebody meets the McMullen Properties brand, like however they meet it, wherever they meet it. And then what is the sequence of events that happens to get them to go, I've just met Tim online. Oh, I kind of like him. He's saying some things that make complete sense to me. Like, fuck, I kind of like him. I want to hire him. Like if we can choreograph that entire process, now we actually have a marketing system where I can be in Tahoe on a Tuesday and I just
party.
Like, yeah. And like, I just pitched a duplex by Dolores Park, kind of right before I came for 3.75. And like that lead literally fell into my lap from one of the marketing systems that we've built. Like I didn't chase it. It just, the dude responded to one of our autoresponders and said, hey, I'm interested. Tell me more. And then I kind of just pitched, and that happened in 24 hours.
Yeah. We'll take it. You know, what I'm hearing, especially for what the Four Seasons experience contributed, is a level of thoughtfulness through the process and the experience that, you know, might be hard to appreciate for someone who's, until you've been put into that situation, or like really shown the magnitude of what that can deliver when you cross your T's and dot your I's, especially for like a luxury high-end client.
Yeah. And a luxury high-end client is the starting place, right? Like we reverse engineer how the client experience is to make the client stoked. And like, yeah, one of the presentations I had, we had a Taiwanese billionaire come over that owned like 600 hotels and casinos in Taiwan. And like, I'm the peasant in his way between him getting what he wants. Like literally, I'm the peasant. Like you couldn't give a shit who I was. And he didn't need to, but I'm the one giving the presentation, talking through the unit packages and what's available. And like, he's got his family with him and they're talking in Taiwanese over me the entire time I'm giving the presentation. Like you just kind of get trained to, this is all about them. This is literally all about the consumer. As long as they're having a fantastic experience, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. And what I don't want to miss here is just kind of the juxtaposition as well. So just touch one more time. I mean, from, you know, picking up some of these skill sets and the value in it, and to today getting this, you know, this opportunity through one of your funnel systems, right? After, you know, hitting the mountain and getting some powder, good for the soul, like I said. You know, what was it like starting off though as an agent in San Francisco, right? Like, I mean, what was that first year like? How did
That
that
was
feel?
tough. I mean, and I tell everyone that asks me that they want to get into real estate, they've seen me do it. I say, just you expect a 6 to 8 year climb. Like, I'm not the smartest dude in the room, but I'm not the dumbest. And like, it's taken me 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
It's tough. You go commission only, right? Like the second you're commission only, and you don't know how to generate those commissions really. It's a lot of treading water and a lot of trying, like, just figuring it out. SF Gate wrote an article about. I was kind of big into PR a couple of years ago when I was launching a different company, and we got a bunch of PR pumped around, and SF Gate wrote this article about my first commission check. I'll tag it in the notes or something for this video, but yeah, it was a no holds barred truth on Tim figuring out how to make a paycheck, and it was a tiny little co-op. It was like $600,000 sale, and I think I made like 17,000 total commission, and I had to split 30% of that with Coldwell Banker and then 30% with the state of California, and I'm sort of walking away with like $7,000 or something like that.
Yeah. Give or take.
And I've worked like 12 months for this $7,000, and I'm thinking like, how are we gonna how?
Yeah.
Tough, dude. But yeah, I mean, it took until like 2018. I think I was barely paying rent with real estate. Even in 2018, Kanoko took me on as a director of content as well as an agent. So I had a stable salary for a heartbeat there. But yeah, you go commission only. It takes a long time, and like I said, from 2018 to probably, I went full time in real estate and dropped personal training in 2019. Like,
Yeah.
I did full time 3 years. It takes a while.
Yeah, I've observed that it typically takes maybe 5 years to kind of hit your stride in real estate, 5 years to maybe get the wind at your back. Certainly longer in most cases, but if you're looking at a minimum, barring extreme outliers with years of experience of other business and marketing, business, outside of real estate, it takes about 5 years to kind of hit your stride.
Yeah, because it's funny. I think there's what's the phrase I'm looking for? The like imposter syndrome. I think it takes a while because at the end of the day, right? Like, I'm competing against somebody that's done this for 60 years. Like, the client gets Tim, who's 2 years in, or Johnny, who's been doing this for 42 years. Like, who the fuck is the consumer going to pick? So you have to, that once you kind of shake that imposter syndrome and you realize the only real estate is very simple. It's literally getting two people to agree to a deal. Like, that's it. It's literally two people agree to a deal. They're both happy. Somebody puts the deal together. Like, that's the meat and potatoes of it. And when you get really comfortable knowing, okay, I can put together $1 million deal. I can put together a $2 million deal. I can put together a $31 million deal. Like, it's the same thing. It's two people going, you know what? I like this deal. I'm in. Sign.
Yeah. And I'd say, like, the macro game of real estate as an agent, though, is to get to the point where you're skilled and competent and confident and capable in all those ways, and then the wind hits your back. With, like, it all starts. You start closing those deals. One deal leads to another deal, and the real game is when, now the past referral business and your market share and your brand awareness in your market, in a neighborhood, on a block, wherever it may be, gets to a certain point that it just starts feeding you in an exponential way.
Yes, I think, again, tying between old school business model and new school business model that's what most agents rely on.
Yeah.
Especially in a moment like this where the market is trash, no one's buying shit. Like, that's what people rely on, is this brand that they've built. But modern day consumers, like, take any advertiser, for example. The backbone of advertising is it takes a person 6 impressions to consider you whenever they're, like, making a decision in your vertical, in your field. Like, you're a tire shop, you get your ad in front of somebody 6 times. They could have been seeing a tire shop for 40 years. They've been driving past it, but now you're literally even when they're making a decision. So in the real estate game, and sort of tying back to Label and McMullen Properties, I live in Tiburon, California. There is one agent that does $300 million worth of business by herself every year. Like, she is the name brand. But if I can get McMullen Properties in front of the consumer 6 times to her 1, when it comes time for them thinking about selling their property, like we're literally both going to get interviewed, and then I've got a 50-50 shot of like knocking it out of the park. And I think a misconception again in that sort of marketing space is a lot of people don't like the top dog in their town. Like there's like, we're red and blue in the States, right? It's 50-50. Like there's plenty of people that might have interacted with the top agent in their town or their city or whatever, and then maybe they don't necessarily like them, so they're looking for an alternate option. So me getting McMullen Properties in front of them is doing them a favor in a way. Like they get a different option.
Yeah. And now we're talking about leverage, really, right? And
Yes.
we know there's digital, there's capital, labor, right? And for other agents, I mean, obvious there's certain cheat codes that are out there, right? And one, like many of the most successful agents I've observed, they spend a ton of money, but they have a ton of money, right? So that's like kind of a catch-22 for our listeners, right? This is going to be something that's really important to them, is they want to know how to leverage their business in this way, right? But you've developed this skill set. Where can they start, or what should they start with?
Good question. I think some of my favorite teachers have all been online courses and books in sort of the digital marketing space. I can definitely put a bunch of book recommendations at the bottom of this video. I think trial and erroring on your own is a really brilliant way to start with anything in the digital world. Like, you have to make a brand, like make McMullen Properties, have an Instagram, have a Facebook, have a TikTok, have a YouTube, have a LinkedIn. Get really comfortable at putting videos on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and like write a couple of articles for LinkedIn, and just get consistent at that. And you can kind of trial and error, like, okay, the neighborhood that I ran an ad at for my article that I wrote on LinkedIn about, I don't know, neighborhood market values for that specific neighborhood. Like they see it, they interact with it. Maybe somebody calls you off of it. Like you start from ground zero, which is being a creator, which where this world has really shifted to, or in this creator economy. Like just, give it a try.
What strategy has had the singular biggest impact on your business, either, overall or recently? Is there one that's especially, resonates?
I think automation. I have spent the last couple of years working really hard with my virtual team. I have a virtual team in the Philippines. We do a bunch of things together. We designed a handful of sort of client acquisition systems, is a good way to put it. I'll paint the example of our expired, like how we market expired properties. Second, and this sort of tying into automation and Tim not having to do anything until somebody literally texts me back from a text that I automatically sent him to talk about listing, which is what happened in Dolores the other day, which sort of led to this. So expired wise, right? Like the second a property expires on the MLS, it notifies, if you haven't a filter set up, it'll notify everyone. My virtual team then takes that expired listing. We find out who the homeowners are. We find their email, their phone number, that sort of thing. We put them into a database. We turn on an autoresponder, which then drips them with basically an introduction to the McMullen Properties brand. And specifically, like, I'm so sorry that your listing didn't sell. Like, it's a tough market. This is really hard for all of us, but there are certain opportunities in the marketplace. And this is sort of my specialty of relaunching expired listings. This is how I do it. And this is what you can expect if you want McMullen Properties to relaunch a listing to the right demographic buyer. And if you put that into a 7 or 10 email sequence over the course of 2 weeks, and then, I don't know, somebody sees your email 4 times, and on the 4th one, they reach out and say, Tim, I'm interested in having you list my home. I haven't done anything. I literally haven't done any work. And I sort of have 1 or 2 of those leads stumble into my inbox every single week, which has literally changed the face of how my business works. Like, I just want to build a bunch of automation behind the scenes so I can snowboard. And I know that Properties is not only being seen by everyone, but it's also interacting with these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is huge, because it'll break some people's brains when I, especially when I mention different types of leverage in real estate. This is typically I think, escaped by most agents the possibility of leverage via labor.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because you got to be a big timer to be able to afford your own transaction coordinator and your own assistant in marketing, and brokerages, pitch that they have this stuff in house, but it's usually just not very effective. It's not focused on you. It's very minor. It's small potatoes resources. But you've leveraged virtual assistants, which has made it like extremely economical to have labor that is, I'm hearing, freeing up your time for you to be able to produce the content and to be able to follow up on the sheer volume of the leads that come from it, but also that, and coupled with like having a plan on, what to do with those lead sources. So that touches back to just the education and figuring it out kind of part. Where do people start if they want to look into developing an outsourced team? Like, what's the first step? Is that just figure it out also, or like, can you give a little context of where they start?
For sure. And I think that question has two beautiful things in it. First of all, it's my distaste with the entire real estate industry.
Yeah.
The concept of a brokerage is supposed to do things for you. They do not.
They don't do anything.
Everyone knows, like, it's a pyramid scheme. You get a 30-70 split. They take 30%. They don't do shit. Which led to this whole thing, and here we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the most important, the nuts and bolts of that question is, how do you start and where do you start? I co-founded Condo Weekly with a couple of friends back in 2018, something like this. And my co-founder, I swear to God, I don't think he worked a second on the company. The role he had, all he had to do was outsource said tasks to a bunch of people in the Philippines and in India and like across Southeast Asia. And I'm sure he probably paid them between $2 and $4 an hour and had his workflow looking like he's working 10 hours a day when he's literally just outsourcing tasks. So sort of taught me the game. There's a bunch of virtual assistant websites that you can hire VAs. There's a ton. I think the biggest challenge that real estate agents have is the typical agent hires an assistant and kind of sits there and looks at them and says, okay, like, do everything for me now. Like, you're
doesn't work that way, does it?
Yeah, no, you have to train people. You have to give them a very specific role so they know how to execute and they know if they're successful or not. And with virtual assistants, it's no different. Like, we'll write up these giant SOPs and it'll be a 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, do this, then this, then this on a Google Doc. And it's idiot proof. And the better you can get at creating these step-by-step processes, like, let's take a listing, for example. It would be like, schedule the photos, make sure the photos get returned, put the photos on the MLS, put the copy on the MLS, click enter, click submit, open house dates are these. Like, you can train somebody to do that by a literal step-by-step sheet. And it doesn't matter what language they speak. Like, you don't have to interact with people on the phone in real life. It's just literally, this is the job, go and perform it. And if you can get really good at doing that, you can move mountains. Like,
that's game changing. I've observed in my clients that there's a general aversion of, I'd say, most people for hiring people, because finding that person, it's hard. They don't know how to do it. And everybody's had a experience where it didn't go so well, where they hired someone and it didn't go well, and they take that singular data point to mean that, like, it's just not something I'm going to touch. But I have a rule of thumb, and whenever you have two things that seem like a priorities, two things that are kind of on the task list, if one of them is hiring someone, that is the top priority, because once you've hired them and trained them,
you don't have to do it anymore.
Now you don't have to do that thing anymore, and now you have more time and more resources, and you have that labor leverage.
Yes. And back to my co-founder at Condo Weekly, Mike. I won't name names, but he would assign 6 people the exact same task. 3 of them would suck. He'd fire them on the spot. He'd assign 3 more people the exact same task until he found a groove where these virtual assistants or these teams that he's hiring know how to communicate in his style. So he probably I wouldn't put it past him that he's fired 100 virtual assistants. Just get really comfortable at sending this job to a bunch of people. This one's $2 an hour, this one's $6 an hour, this one's $8. See which works. Get 2 people doing the exact same job at the same time. See who does it better, and then keep them. And you can leverage labor for really cheap. And before we kind of move past the VA topic, like my VAs have changed my business. If the expired campaign is the biggest thing to sort of generate revenue for McMullen Properties, my virtual team is like, without them, none of this exists. And one of my favorite things that I've done is my lead VA, she's now Label's director of operations. Her name's Nicole. Like I grabbed Nicole she was making $4.49 an hour. And like, we've been working together for 3 years now. I think we've tripled that. She's getting in the $12 range. She's getting 15 now. And there's like a process for her to get to $20 an hour, which in California feels perfectly fair. Like, I wouldn't pay anyone less than $20 an hour in California, but just because she's over there, I don't want her to be treated any differently. Like, I want her to make that $20 an hour, which goes so far where she is.
Yeah.
Like, that's like one of the proudest things I've ever done is I've brought people with me, and it's cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have some experience with that, and I've seen that there's a level of pride in being able to earn that kind of potential, elsewhere. So that's life-changing.
Exactly. And it's the most surreal and special feeling you'll ever feel is like, I've never told her this. She'll probably watch this video. And one of my favorite things is when I see her posting things on her Instagram, like taking her friends places and going out to dinner and doing things like that's fucking amazing.
Dude, that's special. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so for our listeners, I'll connect with you offline and I'll kind of outline some of this strategy, and depending on through which medium they're viewing this, we'll have it in the notes and have a way for them to access and kind of get some great starting points and some great information on how they can begin to implement, outsourcing and a digital marketing plan for themselves. So I got a few other questions here for you that, kind of circling around the idea of like growing pains as, in the real estate industry. And from what I've seen of you personally, and I think that your thoughts would be useful here. So here's just a couple. All right. So, anecdotally, like a key realization I see in my clients just before they're ready to make the progress on their big goals is a realization that the skill sets and hustle that got them here to this level is not sufficient to get them to that next level.
Definitely.
Right. Definitely. So tell me when you found success that kind of like put a spotlight on the new skills you needed to manage or leverage that you needed and able to continue to grow.
As in a singular moment? Okay. I think the thing that jumps to mind would be my $32 million Lake Tahoe listing. Like, obviously,
yeah,
the most ridiculous price points
perfect
ever, right? I think I leveraged a skill set that I had, which was digital marketing, and it was VR at the time. And it's crazy to say that VR never caught or hadn't caught on yet. And this is 2 years past the point, but I was watching my client and friend who had bought a couple of properties with me in San Francisco. She was redeveloping this lakeside mansion in Tahoe, and was about to list it for 32 million. And the team that she was hiring is one of the top Tahoe teams, like absolutely fantastic agents in Tahoe. They've got their model dialed. But I'm looking at this project, and I'm also looking at where we are in the world now. It was 2020 at the time. And I'm thinking, like, the buyer for this doesn't live in Tahoe. They're not going to receive any of these mailers. Like, they might not read the magazines that what a lot of these top Tahoe brokers do as sort of their primary marketing source. We need to get this in front of prospective buyers, like that can afford this house and have some affiliation to Tahoe. So I pitched my client. I remember I went over, I took a VR headset and sort of showed her how to do a VR tour of a property. She puts it on, like she's inside a unit, she's looking around, that sort of thing. And I just said, we need to get something like this in front of every potential buyer, somebody that has 32 million in cash, which means they probably have to have a net worth of 150 to 200 million to be dicking around with a $30 million house. And they don't have enough time to look for it. So we have to get it in front of them and then convince them that they want it, or at least convince them that they want to travel to Tahoe to see it. So I gathered every bit of digital marketing experience I had. I put together a plan around, we're going to target people in the wealthy areas of LA, of San Francisco, in the Bay Area, in Aspen, in New York, in Miami, in places that have like some sort of a luxury, high-end, multiple home owning billionaire type people. And we need to get this property in front of them. And we ran this massive marketing campaign. It got I have the report, like it got hundreds of thousands of views and clicks and all that sort of stuff. And ultimately the buyer ended up coming from La Jolla, California, down in San Diego.
Yeah.
Had ads running at La Jolla for like 6 months it's obviously impossible to say how did this buyer interact with the house the first time. But like that in theory, like La Jolla was seeing ads for this property for months. So maybe that generated that buyer. And that was probably the turning point for me, where it was like, this is the skill set that I have. This is what makes me unique. And I use it to pitch anytime I get a listing sort of above 5, but especially above 10. Like when you get in that 8-figure range, there is a handful of buyers. They have no urgency to buy it. Create something that makes them see it, consume it multiple times on multiple occasions, and then makes them say, you know what, I kind of like that house. Let's go and look. Let's go and look at it.
Good form, man. That's a great story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And last one here. I tell my clients momentum matters because motivation is fleeting. I see you're in Tahoe. What do you do to re-energize yourself, and how do you avoid prolonged dips in your performance?
Whoa. That is a performance coach question right there. I do exactly this. I think I have the luxury where I can commit 100% of my time to any task that I'm working on. And when you work for yourself, you obviously don't really have set hours. So what I've found works for me best is like 4 to 6 weeks of working every single day. Like I love what I do. I literally wake up, but just I am lying in bed thinking about work, excited to get up and open this laptop most of the time. But I'd go for 4 to 6 weeks, and I'd notice the first sort of 3, 4, 5 weeks I'm feeling good, and week 6 I'm starting to feel shitty and bored, and I hate my clients and I want to fire everyone. And that's time when I need to take a break.
Yeah.
So I do something for 3, 4, 5 days. So like that's sort of 4 weeks on. Let's just call it 4 weeks on, 5 days off.
Yeah.
Which is still more work time in theory than a 5-day work week. Like that's worked for me really well.
Fantastic, man. Yeah.
Snowboarding for 2 days.
Yeah, I love it. Where can people find you that want to connect?
McMullen.properties or labelagents.com. I think where we're at in the scheme of things, obviously I want to tie back to label before we finish this. It's all these digital marketing systems and processes that I've spent the last couple of years sort of tweaking and testing and building. Label is literally a white label business model company that is offering this product, all of these systems to agents to sort of plug behind their business and give it to them. And the goal is to let's get as many agents as we can, 1 per county, and see if we can blow them up to the biggest agent in the county. So labelagents.com is the landing page for that business. If people are curious, check it out, like sort of see some of the results we've generated for people. And maybe instead of connecting in an agent to agent way, let's figure out how we can work together way.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. It's an exciting time for label, and I'm proud of you.
Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Dude, this was awesome. Congratulations on everything you're doing too. It's really fun to watch.
I appreciate you, man. We're gonna keep having more fun with it.
Hell yeah.
All right.
And that is a fucking interview, dude.